Firestone standing there, obviously no smile on him at all, still very stern, and Jim Hurtubise again being unlucky here at Indianapolis. Very sad for Jim too.
Chris Economacki's with Dennis Firestone. Let's go down.
Well, Dennis, you've weathered one attempt at your starting position. What is it like waiting for somebody to go out there to dislodge you from the 500?
It's the longest afternoon I've ever spent.
And you're going to have to go through it again, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Every car that comes up, especially this number 4 car of Patrick's.
What do you think about the number 4 car? Who do you think will get it?
I don't know. You know, my owner is talking to Patrick right now. I don't know what's going to happen. We need to have some way out of this.
This is harder than driving, isn't it, Dennis?
A whole lot harder.
Okay, the story here in the pits is car number 4. It doesn't have an Avis, a National, or a Hertz sticker on it. It's gone 197 miles an hour, and it is for rent. And every owner is trying to rent it for his driver. Tim Richmond's people are there. Larry Cannon's people are there. Even Dennis Firestone's people may be over there trying to make a deal for the number 4 car that's a sure starting spot in this year's 500. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Less than 2 hours left of qualifying for the Indianapolis 500 of 1981. We'll be back in a minute. We're back again at Indy, where Roger Rager of Mound, Minnesota is taking his car out onto the track. Now, we mentioned before that the field has long since been filled with 33 cars, and since then, there have been a number of some so-called bumping incidents. But here are the first 3 rows. Bobby Unser sitting on the pole. That's where he will be at the start next Sunday with a speed of over 200 miles per hour for 4 laps. Mike Mosley in the Dan Gurney car in the middle of the first row, and on the outside, A.J. Foyt, who temporarily had sat on the pole after the first day of qualifying. In the second row, Gordon Johncock in the Patrick Racing car. In the middle, Johnny Rutherford. And on the outside, Jose Garza of Mexico, a new and very refreshing face on the American racing scene. Moving to the third row now. Let's have a look at that. Bill Alsop, the pride of Woodstock, Vermont, making the race in a very competitive car. In the middle there, however, Wally Dallenbach. Now, he qualified a car yesterday, but almost certainly he will not start in the race because he qualified it for Mario Andretti, who had to be at the Belgian Grand Prix today, in which he finished 10th. Dallenbach's speed was excellent, as you see, but when he leaves that car and Mario gets into it next Sunday, because it was qualified by a different man, Andretti will have to start at the back of the field all the way down in 33rd place on the outside of the 11th row. Ron Smiley on the outside of the 3rd row right now. He would move up, of course, if Andretti moved into the car. Now, row 4, Al Unser, Pancho Carter, Gary Bettenhausen. Row 5, Kevin Kogan, another newcomer. Look at the rookies in the field this year. Bob Lazier, another rookie, and Tom Bigelow. Row 6, 2 rookies. Jeff Brabham, the son of the great Jack Brabham. Tony Bettenhausen, yet another son of the great Tony Bettenhausen Sr., and Steve Prisaloff. Moving to row 7, we have Vern Schupan, an Australian. Larry Dixon and Herm Johnson, yet another rookie. Billy Engelhart. Dennis Firestone, the blue indicating he's the man on the bubble right now. And Tom Sneevil, look at that qualifying speed, but it was not done on the first day, so he's well back in the field. He was over 200 miles an hour, if you didn't notice. Row 9, Danny Ungaius, Rick Mears, and Sheldon Kinzer. Very fast speed also for Danny Ungaius. Row 10, Halsmer, Michael Chandler, and Don Whittington, all 3 of them classified as rookies. And in row 11, Bill Whittington, brother of the other one, Mr. Klauser and Mr. Carl, rounding out the field as of the moment. That's the story as we come to you live from Indy. Time trials continuing, nearing the final hour, which on most of these stations you will be seeing live on ABC Sports. Now, we have had another bumping incident from the field. If you were with us earlier, you know that Dennis Firestone was the so-called man on the bubble. He is now out of the race, although he could come back a little bit later and try to get back into the field. He was bumped by Scott Brayton, the 22-year-old son of a former IndyCar driver, Lee Brayton. I'm Jim McKay with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart. It has not been a day without incident or accident here, of course.
And yet it's been very quiet during this month of May. We've had 2 drivers that were hurt today, gladly without serious consequences, but at the same time, at the high speeds that are achieved here at Indianapolis, they could have been grave, Jim.
Let's get a quick report on the condition of those 2 drivers from Bill Fleming in the pits. Bill?
Well, the report on Spike Geldhausen is pretty good. He was back walking up and down pit row with a couple of injured Achilles tendons, and he's all right. However, Phil Kruger is down at Methodist Hospital. He has a broken right shoulder, a dislocated right shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, and some slight burns on his face. They're going to keep him there for 3 or 4 days. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Bill. Well, as I said, we're going to be coming back here very shortly now in just a couple of minutes for the final chance, the final hour of qualifying, the final opportunity to make this year's field for the big race for the Indianapolis 500. There is no threat of rain at this moment. It looks like we should have some very, very interesting things going on during that final hour. Scene, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the picture live. We sure hope that you'll be with us when we return in a couple of minutes. The 65th Indianapolis 500 time trial. The final hour. Yes, just 1 hour to go. One more chance to make the field for the 1981 running of America's greatest motor race, the Indianapolis 500. There is some of the crowd gathered here as we bring you our report during this final hour live. You'll notice there are a lot of empty stands here, too. But remember, there are seats at this racetrack for some 250,000 people. So the crowd gathered here today is really quite a large one. As you can see, there's a breeze blowing. It's cloudy overhead. Any rain for this final hour. We've sure had our share, Jackie Stewart, up to here this month of May, as we usually do, it seems.
Well, it seems that every time that I come to Indianapolis, it certainly seems to be raining. I can't remember a race that I got through qualifying and the race without some sort of wet weather.
You bring that rain from your native land, perhaps?
No, in Indianapolis, it's heavier rain than we have in Scotland, but it's been an exciting month nevertheless. And I think the speeds that have been achieved, Jim, have been truly outstanding. And of course, the hour that we're setting ourselves up for now is perhaps the most nail-biting hour in this entire month of May, because the sort of people who are desperate to get into this race, that's the time that they've got to worry. And they're taking away the minutes, and these poor people there are standing there biting their fingernails or trying to get cars prepared and get out onto the racetrack.
For those who may just have joined us, perhaps I should explain one more time what this bumping procedure we're talking about is. Now, the field of 33 cars was actually filled yesterday, and then they started the bumping procedure still yesterday. That very simply means that a car not previously qualified is taken out on the track, and if it turns in a speed faster than the slowest qualifier to date, the slower car is out of the field and the new car is into the field. But that process can continue. The man can be bumped, can come back in himself. It can continue on and on until 6 o'clock, just less than an hour from now. Now, there is a car on the track at the moment. He's not ready to take the green flag yet, however. I don't believe. We have John Mailer out there in car number 92. There is John Mailer, 44-year-old race driver from here in Indianapolis in a Penske PC6 Offenhauser powered engine. John Mailer, who's been in 36 Indianapolis-type car races. Indianapolis 500, his best finish was 14th. In 1972. So it's the Indy Time Trials, one final hour.
The Indianapolis 500 Time Trials, the final hour.
Again, the picture is live. John Mailer of Indianapolis, Indiana, still warming up, preparing to take the green flag and to try to bump rookie Herm Johnson from the field for this year's Indianapolis 500. Mailer has qualified cars for 5 Indianapolis 500s. However, the first time in 1971, he qualified the car, but was actually driven in the race by Dick Simon. Let's see if he's going to take the green flag this time. Might take one more lap. Yep, he's going to take another lap. In 1972, he came back and finished 22nd. His best finish was in 1977 when he finished 14th. Now, the engine in this race car is an Offenhauser. So this is a bit of history, because almost certainly there will be no Offenhausers next year. An engine that has made history here at Indianapolis since, I believe, the year 1929. And this is the only Offie that was entered for this year's race. As a matter of fact, where the serial number normally would be on the engine, this one simply says last one. So it's the last try for the last one, Jackie.
And he himself right now, John Mailer, is busy trying to get the feel of this car on the racetrack right now. He's taken as many laps as he can. And of course and he's coming in. The yellow lights come on and he's pulling the car into the pits. So into the pit lane for John Mailer. Here he comes, in he comes.
Okay, so the Offie will have to wait a little bit longer for its last chance, if in fact it's going to be in shape to make that effort during this final hour at Indy. These are the kind of stories we're going to be seeing. There have been incidents, 2 accidents in fact here earlier today. Phil Kruger was one of them, a 29-year-old race driver from Fullerton, California. A rookie here in Indianapolis. Most of his experience has been on road courses, Jackie. And this, of course, is a very special thing here with the walls of Indianapolis. Now, the wall was exactly what he found, and we'll see how it happened.
Well, he was coming down the backstretch at this time. He got very close to the wall going into turn 3, abnormally close. You never see any of the real top dogs doing that. He looked good at this stage, although the lap before he had got a little unsteady. Around about here, the back end of the car seems to come out a little bit. Look at that, the back end sliding. He corrects it by steering into the skid, but the car goes in the direction of the front wheels were pointing at that time, and he snorts the wall terribly hard, Jim, at a speed of more than 170 miles an hour, I would estimate. The car deforms around him, luckily, because a lot of the energy that would have been taken by him from hitting that wall is dispensed with by the energies ruining themselves along with the deformable structure of the car. He comes to rest, and the driver, as you can see, still sitting in that car, belted in with a 6-point fastener seatbelt. And in fact, he got out of that race car where normally a good few years ago a man might have died. Another angle of this car, and you can see the smoke that he gets there, and you can see the flame coming out. Now, of course, the fuel tanks have been ruptured, and of course got special fuel tanks now. He wasn't severely burned by this. He got first-degree burns on his face, but he was saved greatly by the protection that they have. But look at these pieces flying off that car. The wheel was shattered, and the wing is still on the car. Look at it, and look at the speed that it's still traveling at. The driver holding onto his head on his left side there, holding his hand up. Driver still conscious. Remarkable, isn't it, that a man can hit a wall that hard, let's say at 170 miles an hour, and be able to survive. Emergency crews, as ever, right on the scene so quickly here at Indianapolis. There's no racetrack in the world, Jim, that looks after accidents so well and so efficiently as this one.
Well, Phil Kruger right now, and you see the mark on the wall there. Phil Kruger is in Methodist Hospital. He has a broken right shoulder, some other injuries, none of them too serious, slight burns on his face. So it appears that he's going to be all right, but it was a rough afternoon for Phil Krieger at age 29, trying to make the Indianapolis 500. Now on the track, as we watch the live picture again, this is Dennis Firestone. Now, he was in the field, he was bumped, now he's back for another try, and most interestingly, in a very different car than the one he was in before. This is car number 4, and it's one of the ones prepared for the Patrick Racing Team, certainly one of the 2 or 3 strongest racing teams here. It is thought to be just about as good as the other cars, so this was a great thing for Dennis to get in this, and one should think there was probably some financial wheeling and dealing to get him into it. Don't you think? That's an expensive machine there.
Oh, yes, and the team wouldn't want that machine just to go to anybody for any asking price. I would like to have been a fly on the wall in the negotiating table that was taking place in pit lane, because there was much speculation as to who would get into that car, whether it was Dennis Firestone, whether it was Tim Richmond, whether it be one of the other drivers. But undoubtedly, it had to be a driver that had the financial backing to be able to assure the sort of price that they would want for this vehicle. It is a very fast car. It's a car that's been properly prepared. It's a car that could have been driven by any of the Patrick Racing Team drivers. It could have been driven by Gordon Johncock if he had needed it. And I think that you could see some pretty remarkable speeds here. But remember, he hasn't driven this car. This is a whole new experience for this young man. That is no easy matter. Every racing car, Jim, has its own personality and its own character. And for a driver to be married very quickly to the cockpit of such a racing car so easily, and there's the green flag being waved to him. He's trying to get acclimatized to that car as quickly as possible. Remember, he's approaching this corner at probably in addition to 200 miles an hour, and taking it through a corner of this kind with only 9 degrees of banking and staying that close to a wall in a car that you don't know anything about. You don't know its little idiosyncrasies, its little bad habits, as well as its good points. It's no easy matter. It takes a considerable amount of courage. Not bravery, Jim, because sometimes fools can be brave.
Certainly not foolhardiness.
But no, it's a calculated risk. And I think it does take a very large degree of courage to be able to do that. Obviously, he knows that he can't make any errors. Obviously, not from the point of view of injuring himself, but no errors from the point of view of keeping himself out of the race.
Let me explain what we have on our screen right now. There is his time for the first lap, the total time for 4 laps to beat on the right of your screen. Now, unofficially, you see the average for his first lap, 188.679. The average for 4 laps to beat, 185.874. So he is well over it. Almost 3 miles an hour over it, but he has 3 more laps to go, remember. This is Dennis Firestone. He is no relation to the tire people. In fact, Firestone is on good years at the moment, I do believe. He's 36 years old, from Gardena, California. Last year's Rookie of the Year on the kart racing circuit. Lap 1 official speed, you see right there, 188.363. Dennis, the president of a trucking company by profession. He's driven Super V, Formula Ford, Formula Atlantic, all road course type cars. Again, the running time for the second lap, when you see the average speed come up the next time, it will be the average speed for the first 2 laps, not just for the second lap. And of course, the time on the right and the average on the right is always for the 4 laps of Herm Johnson, the man on the bubble right now.
Well, right now he's sort of looking as if he's firmly in the race. He got a little unsteady the previous lap in turn 3. It gave a little wobble. And when you have a little wobble at 188 mile an hour average out there, Jim, it feels like a very big wobble because you are so close to that fence or wall, as the drivers call it, and it's no easy matter. There's the time again, 188.324 miles an hour. Extremely consistent, which says a lot for Dennis Firestone. I'm sure he could drive this car a little faster than he is now, but that would be foolhardy. But he's very close to the wall as he comes out there. That could only have been inches away from the wall as he comes and gets his white flag. White flag means 1 lap to go. So this young man is only 2.5 miles away from qualifying for the Indianapolis 500.
He was in the race last year, his first Indianapolis 500, as he continues to take those corners quite close to the wall. Last year he finished 16th and completed 137 laps before the transmission gave way in his race car. So Dennis Firestone trying to make his second Indy 500. Now, no matter how fast his average speed is, even if it were faster than Bobby Unser, he will not go to the top of the starting grid. Because he is simply replacing the man on the bubble, he will start at the back of the field. As of now, the only man to start behind him probably would be Mario Andretti when he returns next week, because a different man drove his car. There's the checkered flag, making sure that they didn't wave him off there. And he has taken the speed, obviously, a very good speed, unofficially 187.891 for the 4 laps. So Herm Johnson has had his bubble burst. The live picture of Dennis Firestone of Gardena, California, who has qualified for the Indianapolis 500. Much more to come. Pace picks up as we continue our live coverage of the final hour of the Indianapolis 500 time trials. Lots of cars still in line, wanting to get that final chance to make the field. And this is Bill Tempero in car number 15. He's a 37-year-old rookie from Fort Collins, Colorado. He has raced in Indy cars before, but not in Indianapolis 500. In fact, he has made 11 starts in Indianapolis-type cars. His best finish, 18th, however, in this year's Phoenix race. Former road racer, drove Can-Am championship car rookie in 1980 last year. First passed his Indianapolis 500 driver's test last year also. So Bill Tempero is out there in a McLaren SV with a Chevrolet stock block engine. Again, when you see those yawning empty stands, there, by the way, is Jerry Carl, the man on the bubble. And he would be knocked out of the race, at least for the moment. He would have a chance to try again, perhaps. For the moment, he would be out. Chris Economaki is with him. Chris?
Yes, Jim. Oh, Jerry, what's on your mind right at this
Jerry
moment?
Carl.
Well, I'm worried. Really worried. We got 45 minutes left. The track has gotten considerably faster. There's a good chance we could get bumped.
Well, how long ago was it you qualified in time? Not more than an hour or so, right?
About an hour ago, Chris. And,
The track can change dramatically in 1 hour?
well, the track was pretty fast when I qualified. It helped me considerably.
Now you just wait it out, huh?
That bump speed deserves it.
Okay, take it like a sport. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, Jerry Carl, the man on the bubble, as Bill Tempero has taken the green flag and is on the first of his 4 qualifying laps. Boy, I don't think we've had this before since we've been in Indianapolis, where one car after another was going out, stepping up the pace all through the final minutes of this final hour, Jackie.
Well, it's the kind of tension that we respect about Indianapolis in a way. It's not a question of always expecting it, but you have to respect what goes on and the emotions of these people, because remember, this is the end of the rainbow as far as those drivers are concerned. This is the biggest automobile race in the world as far as they're concerned, and it only happens but once a year in this kind of speedway for this kind of money. And of course, they desperately want to get onto it, and they want to get into the field. And it's been interesting today, the ones that have been bumped. Oh, and look at this.
So good. 180.360. What he has to beat 186. Wouldn't be surprised to see him waved off on the next lap, would you?
Oh, he would have to be waved off, Jim. There's no reason for him to go around this racetrack anymore, burn up machinery, a car, and himself, because he's just not going to make up that kind of time.
This is his second attempt. You get 3 attempts altogether, but that's all. So conceivably he could back out again. Of course, he has to go to the end of the line now, so it could be he would not get out either. There's his official speed for that first lap, 180.072. Tempero, a rookie. Yeah, 10 rookies have qualified for the race at this point. The number had gotten up to 11, which would be a new record, but then a rookie was bumped, Herm Johnson, so it's back down to 10, which equals last year all-time record of 10 rookies in the field. It's an interesting point, I think, Jackie. We are, at long last, beginning to see new names, new people in American championship car racing. For example, the young Mexican.
Well, tremendously refreshing it is, Jim, because there's been the old brigade here for a very long time. And, of course, the crowd want to see somebody else coming up. One of the good things that have happened in recent years, of course, has been the arrival of a man, Rick Mears, who definitely came in as a young lion and stepped right up to go against the established stars. The young man who's got himself in the second row of this starting grid, the young Mexican, Jose Garza,
yeah.
For him to be that far up, Jim, is very impressive to me. I spoke to him earlier today. He's only 22 years of age, good-looking young man, stands 6'1" in height, very impressionable young man. And look at that. That's one lap to go, and he's still on it.
Yeah, but I think they just gave him the sign to come in. This is wasting valuable minutes that somebody else could be using. You saw his average speed, 179. He's 7 miles below what he needs, so there's really no point whatsoever in his being out there. And somebody else could make the race.
Well, he's not using the racetrack, and he's not doing very much else out there. Of course, it's very easy for us to sit in our commentary position and comment. He's obviously driving as hard as he could, the car perhaps not handling nearly well enough, and him perhaps not having the experience because he is a rookie. And to come to this big bad speedway and try and go quickly, I can know from my own experience, is no fun. Tremendously off-putting. It's an awesome sight to drive this speedway and to thread the needle, and there he raises his hand to come into the pits. He's not completing it.
That'll be it. Also easy for us to sit up here and say he's only going 177 miles an hour. Momentarily, another car will be out on the track. 40 minutes to go of the final hour. Precisely 38 minutes left in the final hour for qualifying for the 1981 Indianapolis 500. Jim McKay reporting with Jackie Stewart. And out on the track, we have Dick Simon in car number 22, veteran driver, 47 years old, and he's just warming up preparatory to his try to make the field for his 12th Indianapolis 500. The best he has ever finished in 11 previous attempts, 13th back in 1972. Dick Simon's done about everything. He's been a ski jumper and a parachuter and just about everything else that you could think in the realm of dangerous and exciting and adventurous sport. This is his second attempt, by the way, he's preparing to take. And as we mentioned before, you get 3 attempts. Dick Simon. Just a minute before we see. Well, let's see if he gets the green flag. I don't think so. Yes, he's going to get on it. But he might take another lap. Dick Simon is on it for his 4-lap attempt to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. In previous years, he's qualified a good deal earlier than this. But remember, we had very few cars qualify on the first day when we had a lot of rain. The next day was entirely rained out. It was only yesterday that they really got going. 53 cars went out to make qualification attempts, which was a new record for one day. By the way, now we have had 11 cars bumped from the field so far, 2 yesterday and 9 today. This could make another one here. Jerry Carl is the man on the bubble.
Not only has there been trouble in getting actual qualifying time done because of the weather, but the track time on the cars, Jim, has not been plentiful when they've had to sort out the cars, the chassis, get to know the vehicle, try to take out all the little problems that these vehicles have. And there he goes, round he goes, still on the green flag, remember, and that's Jerry Carl, finger biting as ever. It has to be. I've been bumped from the field at Indianapolis. It happened in 1967 for me, and it wasn't a very comfortable thing. There's the speed that he did there, 182.186. That's unofficial, of course. The time he has to beat on the right-hand side.
Yeah, he's about almost 4 miles an hour lower than what he has to be. Dick Simon's crew chief, by the way, is A.J. Watson. There's the official first lap speed, 182.113. His crew chief, A.J. Watson, has had 4 cars win the Indianapolis 500. A.J., one of the last of the flat-top crew cuts. He still looks very much as guys did back in the days of the old roadsters here, but a marvelous chief mechanic still. Okay, check the second lap time, unofficial time, and the unofficial average, 182.186. He's not doing nearly well enough. And And it looks like he's going to be waved off. Yep. So that'll be it for Dick Simon here, and he may not make it for the first time since 1969. Back again at Indianapolis, Jim McKay with Jackie Stewart, and on the track as we continue our live coverage of the final hour of qualifying is Jerry Sneva, who is the brother of Tom Sneva. Tom is already in the field. He had a sensational qualifying speed of over 200 miles an hour, but since it was not a first day time, he is in the 7th row of the starting field at the moment. Jerry is 30 years old. He's the younger brother of Tom Sneva in a Rolla Volstedt Offie car. He's been in this race 4 times before. The best he has finished was 10th in 1977. His first lap speed, 187.696. That would be good enough.
Very comfortable time indeed. I came down an airplane from Chicago on Friday night, in fact, with his in-laws, and at that time he didn't have a drive in this race. They were concerned about it and hoping that he would get a drive, and sure enough, here is the young man making the field right now. If he continues at this speed, I see very little reason for him not to be in the big race.
You'll recall, Jackie, he surprised everybody last year with the 7th fastest speed in qualifying.
Quite amazing how many brothers and families are involved in American motor racing. Here's Jerry Sneva and Tom Sneva, of course, performing that incredible one-lap thing at 202 miles an hour. Jerry Carl, of course, still on the bubble on the top right-hand side of our screen there. This looks bad for him because the second lap time was 188.482 miles an hour. It looks like Jerry Carl is being bumped, which, of course, means that he's going to drop out this field.
Of course, we already have the Bettenhausen brothers in the field. Gary Bettenhausen and his younger brother Tony. There's the white flag indicating one more lap to go for Jerry Sneva of Spokane, Washington.
We've got the Answers in the field too, and the Mearses have been having trouble. Of course, Rick Mears making an attempt to qualify and getting into the field after a mechanical happening, and the first attempt that he had to go in a backup car and was a little slower than he would have liked. But his brother, having lots and lots of trouble, blew up 5 engines in an attempt to qualify. So Roger Mears was having trouble. The third lap speed here for Jerry Sneva.
2.285. 188.285. He's looking very, very good. He's going to do this easily if the car holds up.
He's got to stay away from trouble now. That's the big thing for him. Got to stay away from that wall. Just got to... There he goes.
Checkered flag for Jerry Sneva of the state of Washington, and Jerry Carl has been bumped. There's his reaction. Chris?
Car stalled. Dave Luckett, the chief mechanic for the British Aero team, ran out on the track and knelt behind Patrici's car, apparently trying to get it started. Suddenly, the green light signaled the start of the race, and in the confusion, Italian driver Siegfried Storer struck the rear of Patrici's car, pinning Luckett in a horrible crash. As Luckett lay badly injured, Storer, Patrici's teammate on the Aero racing squad, left the cockpit of his own car in complete shock. Miraculously, Luckett's life is not in danger in spite of his 2 broken legs, a broken shoulder, and several head injuries. Almost 2 hours after the accident, the race was restarted. And early in the scheduled 70-lap race, Australian Alan Jones was in the lead in his Williams. On the 20th lap, Jones went wide on a turn and slammed into a restraining barrier. Jones was unhurt, but out of the race, and his teammate Carlos Reutemann of Argentina, the leading driver in the Grand Prix Championship standings, went on to win the race, his second of the season. Carlos Reutemann was a winner, and again, Dave Luckett, the chief mechanic for the British Aero team, the report is that we have from him tonight is that he has 2 broken legs, a broken shoulder, numerous head injuries, but his life, fortunately, is not in danger. Those were the results of the race, and as you can see, not too good a day for Mario Andretti, who had to pass up qualifying at Indianapolis today. He finished 10th. Okay, let's go back to Jim McKay at Indianapolis.
Okay, Frank, and now with less than a half an hour to go, the car on the racetrack is being driven by Roger Rager of Mound, Minnesota, a 32-year-old race driver, in a Wildcat stock block Chevrolet. And Vern Chupin of Australia, Larry Dixon, who right now is the man on the bubble, we're told he is not at the racetrack, however. And then Tom Sneva with that tremendous qualifying speed, but not first day. That's why he's in row 7. Row 8, Danny Ungaius, also with a fast speed, but not the first day. Rick Mears, a former winner, and Sheldon Kinzer. A look now at row 9. Halsmer, Chandler, and Whittington. That's Don Whittington of the brothers Whittington, Don and Bill. Chandler is Michael Chandler from Los Angeles. His dad is the publisher of the Los Angeles Times. In row And Bill Whittington, as I said, George Snyder, who qualified here just a while ago in A.J. Foyt's backup car. That's an old habit of George Snyder's. And Dennis Firestone, who was bumped and then got back into the race in that excellent car number 4. He has just taken over from the Patrick Racing team. And in the final row at the moment, Jerry Steele, who just got into it, remember, and young Scott Brayton, a rookie, and Tom Clauser, also a rookie. On the race course, it looks like he's almost ready to take it, is Roger Rager in car number 66. And he's trying to bump Larry Dixon, who is not at the racetrack, but is most certainly the man on the bubble. He's going to take the green. There we go.
Roger Rager, a big event for him. Driving a stock block once again. He came here last year. He took the stock block engine out of an old school bus, he said, and rebuilt it, working on a shoestring. Roger Rager on the top right-hand side there. Husband and wife team come to this Indianapolis 500. Very nice young couple, trying hard to make his name and fame and fortune, perhaps, out of motorsport. Always a difficult thing to do, Jim, but if everything comes together the right way, it can be an extremely comfortable living.
Well, you know, when he almost stubbornly came here with that old school bus engine last year, little did he know that he was riding the wave of the future, apparently, at Indianapolis. Because, as I mentioned briefly, the rules for next year state that everything must be a stock block engine. In other words, a regular automobile engine of some sort. This is a Chevrolet. It has a very different sound, certainly, Jackie. And what are some of the other advantages and drawbacks as far as you're concerned?
Well, first of all, Jim, let me say that he's not up to speed, and his engine doesn't feel like it. And in fact, he's pulled off the line, Jim. So Roger Rager's in trouble. As he passed our commentary position here, it certainly sounded bad to him. But perhaps we can talk a little more later.
Well, Roger Rager, as we told you, had been waved off, was coming into the pits. Suddenly, fire started coming from his car. He pulled into the infield. This was just a minute ago. Rager leaped out of the car. Apparently, he is okay. He could have some of those invisible alcohol burns. We don't know as yet, but he was very mobile. He looks like he's okay. Roger Rager of Mound, Minnesota.
I think the situation there was probably an oil fire which got started. It didn't seem to be an alcohol fire. Of course, here they use alcohol instead of gasoline, and when that burns, there is no flame, Jim. So sometimes you can see somebody getting burned without any sight of it. But I think it was an oil fire. May have been coming for the reason of our problem. When we heard his engine go off, maybe some oil was spilled there. And of course, the ever-efficient emergency crews were right on the scene and got the fire out.
Okay, Jackie. Well, that, of course, brings out the yellow flag yesterday. There is Tony Bettenhausen, the last of the racing Bettenhausen brothers. Their father, of course, Tony Bettenhausen Sr., was one of the great drivers here, but tragically was killed back in the early 60s. But this was Tony Bettenhausen yesterday at a qualifying speed of better than 186 miles an hour. It appears that he will be safely in the field, pending any bumping that would come along, but it looks like he is going to make it. As we said, the Bettenhausens have been coming here such a long time, it's been almost an unbroken continuity. This was his mother watching as he qualified and took the checkered flag to be in the field for the 500.
With the qualification of Tony Bettenhausen, the two Bettenhausen brothers will be in this year's 500. The Bettenhausen legend began in 1946 when the patriarch, Tony Bettenhausen, came here. 15 straight 500s he qualified before he was killed not 200 feet from where we're standing. And here's the family. On the left, Merle, whose racing career was cut short when he lost an arm in a crash at Michigan. And Tony in his first 500. Behind Tony is Merle's wife, Valerie. And here's Tony's wife, Shirley, and Gary Bettenhausen in this year's race. Gary's wife, Wave, and the matriarch of the family, Mrs. Valerie Bettenhausen. Tony, what do you feel about being in your first 500?
Well, ever since I knew what the Speedway was, I dreamed of being in the race with my brothers, and we're in with one of them anyhow, and I just wish there was three of us.
Well, we all do. Val, I saw you during Tony's qualifying run with tears in your eyes. Were they tears of joy?
Yes, a little sadness, but just proud of both of them. Got two of them in the race in a half hour. Can't hardly do that.
Well, I hope you have something to cheer about when it's all over.
I do too, Chris. Thank you.
And so the name and the Bettenhausen legend continues at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And now as the clock keeps ticking the minutes away of this final hour, Roger Rager's car is being taken away, but the yellow flag is out.
Jim, I'm with Bill Tempero. Bill, you've got to beat better than 186 miles an hour of Larry Dixon. This is number 2 attempt. What's the best you've done so far?
Best we've done is 183. So we've had a lot of fuel pressure problems, and we're just trying to work it out. And, you know, it's getting down to the last few minutes now, so.
It's getting down to the wire. You've only got about 18 minutes left, and we've got a yellow on right now. Let's go to Chris Economaki.
Well, it's been an interesting month here, and there's some remarkable statistics have come off today's runs. 187.784 miles an hour. That's the speed registered by Dennis Firestone, and to the same third decimal point, the speed registered by Jerry Sneva. 187.784, which means if someone is bumped, Sneva goes out first because Firestone set the speed first. There were 105 entrants and 65 cars got here. There have been 87 qualification attempts, and there are 10 rookies in the field, and it may well be that the 1951 record of 12 will be equal. Back to you, Jim.
All right, Chris, thanks very much. The yellow flag's still out. Perhaps some of you have been wondering what has happened to the women's movement here at Indianapolis. Well, certainly there are women in the pits now and women reporters and women everywhere, except no woman in a car this year. That, of course, has always been a one-woman movement. A woman named Janet Guthrie. The simple fact that she's not here this year, let's trace her history at Indianapolis. It was part of the women's liberation scene when she first appeared. Janet Guthrie, a 38-year-old woman who regretted the fact it was taken as a sociological story. She was just a race driver trying to make the field, she said. Well, she passed her rookie test, but failed to qualify for the race. She assured us she would return, and so she did in 1977, returned and made her point by making the field. She would be the first woman to drive at the Indianapolis 500, and her reaction?
I feel awful good.
Well, in the race itself, it was proven that all race drivers are equal as far as racing luck is concerned, and Janet wasn't good that day. Her car gave out after 27 laps, but a milestone had been passed. 1978, Janet was back again, and this time there was real progress. The car held up well enough for her to finish in 9th place. Sam Posey asked her about her top 10 finish.
I mean, what is this nonsense about women can't do it?
Continued progress, however, is never automatic. In 1979, Janet's car broke down after only 3 laps. She had been hoping for so much more that her reaction was grim, almost bitter.
Everything went extremely well at the start of the race, but the motor went away.
Then, last year, in the trials, she had a speed that, as it happened, would have made the race, but she decided not to take it. She failed to qualify, and the enthusiasm of 1977 was gone.
I know I can win races. I mean, the numbers are all there for anybody who cares to look. Unless I can come back here next year with a full race program of the sort that enables me to run out front instead of a one-race deal, this will probably be my last time here at Indianapolis.
And in 1981, Janet Guthrie is not at Indy. That's the Janet Guthrie story. Right now, live on the track, we have rookie Bill Tempero in car number 15. He's 37 years old from Fort Collins, Colorado. He was out a while ago, just an hour or so ago, and was way off what he needed. He was way down around 179 on his last lap, I think 177. He needs 186 something. See if he's going to take the green this time. Bill Tempero in the fading moments of an opportunity to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. The man on the bubble is not at the racetrack. It's Larry Dixon, and the speed, 186.278. That's what Tempero has to beat.
Well, this is his third and final attempt, Jim. He's had 2 previous attempts. He had complained about fuel pressure problems and his engine not giving maximum performance. It'll have to give him all the performance he can get right now if he's going to make this field. 186.278 is the speed to beat, set by Larry Dixon. Larry Dixon will probably be sitting in watching our show right now, biting his teeth.
That's right.
And his nails as well.
We've met you before, I think, that Bill Tempero is a former road racer. Maybe some of you were with us before. Drove the Can-Am Series. Passed his Indianapolis driver's test last year, 1980. And he's got there's a yellow out, so he'll be waved off, and that means apparently that Bob Fry will get a chance. No, that's been changed. John Mailer is now first in line. 44-year-old veteran from Indianapolis. He's in a Penske PC6.
When a driver knows that he has to do a time, oddly enough, it gets you off your timing. It does terrible things to your confidence. When I was bumped, I thought, my goodness, my world's fallen apart. Here I had been nearly winning the race the previous year. I had led the race. I was leading the race by almost 2 laps. with only 8 laps to go the previous race, my engine broke down, and then I went the very next year thinking, now, we're all prepared, we know what to do. And my goodness, I was bumped from the field, Jim. The confidence in my own driving disappeared. The racetrack became a monster for me. It was very difficult to build myself up to think that I was going to do good speeds. And in fact, in the car that I was driving at that time, I had to wrestle with it for the month of May, as many of those drivers that were seeing out there was going to have that sort of problem for them. Then I sat in another car, as many of those drivers has, and there's Larry Dixon, by the way, the man on the bubble, sitting at home, probably watching us on TV right now, sort of waiting for that clock to tick away the time and give him that last position in the field. Of course, Mario Andretti will be behind him, or at least alongside him. But then I sat in another car, as I said, Jim, and the car speed went soaring up, and therefore I got my confidence back, and everything went well for me. Although I retired in the race itself, I was at least competitive. But this place does strange things to people.
No question of that. We should point out, by the way, that Dick Simon, the next man in line, would not have to complete his run by 6 o'clock Indianapolis time. He would merely have to be out on the racetrack by that time. He could run past the witching hour to complete his run. And there he is in the race car, sitting waiting for that opportunity in the balaclava to protect him from any possible fire out there. John Mailer, however, still has the whole racetrack to himself, and it's really winding down. It's going to be very close as to whether or not Dick Simon gets out there, and could depend on whether John Mailer goes all 4 laps.
Well, to take the green flag, he's taking it. So this is an attempt for this man. This he knows is going to be his last attempt. He's going to give it everything he can give it. And of course, he has to stay away from that wall. He has to stay out of trouble. He's high in the groove right there, Jim. Very high, right out of the groove. You could see him. He was in sort of virgin territory there, the white part of the racetrack. And there's all sorts of little marbles up there, Jim. Even in a racetrack as beautifully maintained and kept as Indianapolis, the dust goes up there, and of course when that happens, it gets very slippery. He could have clipped that wall.
Two veterans here trying to make the field. Mailer, age 44, on the racetrack. Simon, age 47, in the pits, and he's still doing it.
He's still high in that racetrack. He's giving everything to that car and to this racetrack. And look at him, he's almost doing it again. The back end of the car slid out there. He hung on to it. Now, at these sort of speeds, Jim, it's difficult to see in television here as he comes down the start-finishing line, and his speed was only 100.
Not nearly good enough. We're live again from Indianapolis, where Dick Simon, at age 47, will get that attempt to get into the field for the 12th straight year for the Indianapolis 500. A report from the pits quickly from Christy Konamaki.
Well, political strife has ripped championship car racing for the last 3 years. But this year there's been no politics and no real controversy until just now, when a charge was made that the pop-off valve, which limits the turbocharger pressure on these turbocharged engines, on Jerry Sneever's car was jammed shut with a bolt. Now, the charges have come from one political side. The owner of that car is from the other political side. Jerry Carl has filed a protest. Will this protest be resolved in time to do you any good, Jerry?
Well, I hope so, Chris. Of course, after the run, Steve Krisloff came to me and told me that he'd seen that the pop-off valve was jammed shut with a bolt when the car pulled out on the starting line. And, you know, obviously the car did not drive into the pits. They parked it down at the end of the pit lane for some reason and pushed it in here. So it's very possible that they could have pulled the bolt out before they pushed it down here for the pit inspection and tech inspection. So we filed a protest, and we have 2 witnesses that seen the bolt. It has nothing to do with politics. It's just what's fair play. You know, the car. You know, I was congratulating Jerry. The car, you know, has been running 178, 179 all month, and Jerry got it up to 181 at one time, and all of a sudden he got up to 188. You know, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You know. I don't know. I just, Steve came to me, and he has no sides in anything. You know, he just wants to see what's fair is fair.
Okay, Jerry, thank you. So there it is, the first controversy of the season in the closing minutes of time trial.
Sounds like one that could take a little while to resolve. Dick Simon has taken the green, however, in his final attempt out here, which should be the final attempt of the year 1981 to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. Dick Simon from San Juan Capistrano, California, in his A.J. Watson prepared Cosworth powered machine, going for Indianapolis 500 number 12, he hopes.
Well, pretty close to the wall as he came out of turn 4 there. Famous place to get close to the wall. And he has a yellow flag.
A yellow, it's a wave off. So conceivably, Bob Bob Fry could get out. It's going to be tough for him to get out. He's the next man in line. Now, the man with the gun is in there who will shoot off the blank cartridge that will end the qualifying attempts at 6 o'clock Indianapolis time. Remember, this is all live. It is happening right now as you watch and listen. There is the car of Bob Fry, car number 71, a rookie from Elyria, Ohio, at age 30.
He hasn't even got his gloves on right now, Jim.
Yeah, they must have given up.
Oh, no.
Well, he's putting them on.
No.
Putting them on, just in case. Okay, Bill, what's the story down there?
I think there must have been a missed signal there because Tom Binford, the chief steward, said, roll it, get it going. And they didn't have the starter in line. But now they do have the starter in line, and they've got it jammed into the back end here, and they're going to try to get it cranked, and they've only got, what, 30 seconds?
We're going to be running over here, by the way, and we will stay with it until the story is resolved here as to whether or not one more man gets out. Those amazing animals will still be coming up next. There is the window, the blank cartridge pistol, prepared to go off at 6 o'clock. If that goes off before he gets out of the pits, it's forget about it till next year, Bob Fry. Dick Simon, remember, was waved off. He will not be in the race for the first time in 12 years. Look at the clock now, approaching 25 seconds. It's really going to be a near thing. The whistles are blowing, trying to clear the pit area.
Frustration.
What is engine start or what, Bill?
Going and he's killed his engine.
He killed his engine?
Yeah, just an inadvertent.
They had it started. There is the gun out the window. If they can get it started and he gets in motion, he's all right. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. He's still not rolling. Still not rolling. That's it. Qualifying is over. Bob Fry will not make it. Dick Simon did not make it. Now set for the 1981 running of the Indianapolis 500. That's the story. Jim McKay with Jackie Stewart. Travel arrangements made through it, a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. United flies more people to Hawaii than any other airline.